chain being ignorance leading to volition, and then that leading to consciousness and so on. So that is in some sense an elaboration on the teachings of the Four Noble Truths, when the causal process of an unenlightened existence that is sort of within the framework of suffering and its origin is elaborated, then you have the sequential order of the 12 links of dependent origination, how an individual sentient being, as a result of certain causes and conditions, enters into this process of samsaric existence or unenlightened existence. Whereas that very individual, as a result of certain practices, can engage in a reversal process of that order, which pertains to the processes that leads to enlightenment. And here, then the 12 cycles, instead of rotating in a sort of a sequential way, their sequences are reversed, and that leads to the true cessation. For example, like if you seize the continuum of ignorance, then of course the continuum of the volitional actions will be seized. If that is seized, then the consciousness that serves as the kind of and so that ceases. When the consciousness ceases, the name and form ceases. So you can see that the teachings on the 12 links of dependent origination are in some sense elaboration of the two sets of causes and conditions.
Yeah, that's enough.
So we will have some questions here at this point.
Written questions from the auto.
So perhaps in the next sessions, if the questions could be in a written form, it would be more convenient. The question was that His Holiness spoke about individuals gaining the practice, sort of individual practitioners gaining insight into the Four Noble Truths, and then spoke about Buddha having perfected these insights. So the question was, what is the difference between individuals gaining insights and Buddha's perfection of these insights? Is that the question?
Midagwa, double Lord Chashana. Toma Bana, Dengzin She. Dengzin Day, any that Tendu, she did Ribipa Jenny, you Papa Jane, any touching thingy, Lord Doddy, any Tazung knowledge.
To give an example of, say, gaining insight into the subtle impermanence that the momentary nature of all things and events. For an individual who, at the initial point, may have an understanding of things as being permanent, at the initial stage, that sort of grasping at permanence of things could be quite strong and intense. Now, in order to lessen that grip, loosen that grip, you need some form of critical reasoning, which could, even if it can cast a doubt or suspicion in the person's mind as to things being permanent, that has in itself made an impact on the person's mind, because it has at least had the effect of loosening the grip of things being permanent or eternal. Now, that is again not enough. You need further reinforcement of critical reasoning to point you towards a kind of tending more towards the impermanence of things. Even that is not enough. You need a further conviction, and that can be gained through, again, constant reflection, and that can lead to what is known as the inferential understanding or intellectual understanding of impermanence. And that, again, is not enough in order to have a strong impact on your behavior. You have to gain direct insight or intuitive experience of the impermanence of things. And that, again, needs to be further perfected, because the idea is that the grasping at permanence is deeply embedded in your consciousness, that it's not just one insight can dispel it. It's a long process of deepening your insight that would eventually dispel that even as smallest tendency towards grasping at permanence. So this is it's a long process of kind of deepening your insight. So this would be the same in the case of emptiness or any other things. However, on the other side, there are certain aspects of the path which may have less to do with cognitive experiences, which may have more to do with, I suppose one could say, enhancement of the heart, like compassion, bodhicitta, and so on. In these areas, at the initial stage, of course, one has to develop some understanding of what compassion is, and then you have to have some sort of notion of how that could be enhanced. And then as a result of your practice, you may gain at the initial stage some kind of simulated experience of these. When you sit down and think, you may feel you're compassionate, but that compassionate may not be long-lasting, that may not be pervasive, that may not permeate your very being. So what is needed is a further deepening of that experience, so that your compassion becomes spontaneous. It is not dependent upon a sort of intellectual simulation. Rather, it would be a truly spontaneous, responsive to sort of occasions that would demand that response. And through that, again, that experience of compassion could be further deepened, and it becomes universal. There is, again, a different aspect of the path. So it's again here, there's a long process.
Any 다 탑시야 탑시 똑바지자로 다 무튼다 야게르알이야 아니 베나 메다보 무슨 통행의 로직 베나 다미 무슨 통행의 로직 무튼이 야게르알 탑기 야 로시고야 탑기 도리도 제대야 땀부 차야다 야 디베 누버베 탐미를 패야냐 싫어고 좋아제 탑신이 베 송지체니 도스도고.
So these two aspects of the path are known as, in the technical Buddhist language, the method aspect of the path and the insight or the wisdom aspect of the path. And these two must go hand in hand. These two must be combined, because in order for the insights to be enhanced and deepened, you need the complementing factors from this method aspect, such as compassion and bodhicitta and so on. Similarly, in order to enhance and deepen your realization of compassion and bodhicitta, you need, and also in order to strengthen them, you need the factor of wisdom, the insight, which would sort of, ground them, which would sort of enhance them. So you need, therefore, a sort of an approach where there is a combination or the union of method and wisdom.
다야 델레이 캠으로 가수래 베나 메다보토고 로티기 그 겐다르 등징으로 들어왔다. 베나 메다보 통에 베나 메다보 무슨 통이 되잖아요. 다 디가다 등징으로 로티 매바 차버리디 이내 아다 등징으로 로티 되게 야고 가수래 메다보토고 로티 베 가수래 베 고바 탐미로 패야리야 더동 등징으로 들어야 느끼게 되거든.
So similarly, in the case of, say, insight into impermanence, although that very insight would enable the individual to overcome graspings at permanence, but that does not mean to say that that path alone would lead to total liberation, because there are many other fetters of mind that constricts the mind, such as grasping at...
liberation means? No. 메다보 통에 로 코라 그냥 가서 다시 고바 탐미로 해야라.
That insight into impermanence and deepening that alone is not enough, even to perfect that insight. You need further complementary factors, because there are other factors within your mind. It's not just permanence, grasping at permanence, but also grasping at independent objective reality of things. grasping at abiding principles, or grasping at intrinsic reality. So these need to be counteracted through, again, developing insight into emptiness. So what you see here is a very